So on the right over here we have a pseudocode to determine the win and loss conditions. So let's just look at it. So first we're going to initialize the turns to the length of the original word, and then we're going to loop till turns greater than 0. That is, we're going to loop through every turn, and then we're going to ask the user for the guess, and then we're going to validate whether the guess is correct or incorrect. And over here we have, if string has no more blanks, then user has 1. And then what we will be doing is we'll be breaking out of the loop, and then we will reduce the turns by 1. And if turns equal to 0, then the user has lost. So in our final subtask of the Hangman project, we are going to be deciding the winner. So if you remember previously, we have defined the winning conditions. That is, if the user has guessed all the, that is, if there are no more blanks present in the display word, then the user has 1. Or if the number of turns is 0 and the number of blanks are empty, then again the user has 1. But if the number of turns is 0 and there is at least 1 blank, then the user has lost. So the task for this particular subtask is that we have to update the hasPlayerLost function, and if blank is not in display word, then the user has 1. Then we're going to print out u1, and if the number of turns is 0 and there are still blanks remaining, the user has lost, and then we're going to print out u lose. Coming to the code, let's look at the hasPlayerLost function. So as you can see, it's a boolean function that is going to return a boolean value, but we're going to take the number of turns, the secret word, and the string of guesses as an input for this particular function. Now inside the function, I'm going to initialize the string display word, then I'm going to pass it on to the word display function so that I can store what is the particular state of the word, that is how many letters have been guessed and how many blank spaces exist in the word. And after I get that information over here, I'm going to return turns equal to 0 and display word dot contains blanks. These two ampersands over here means and. So if the number of turns equal to 0, that is the user does not have any turns, and the display word contains blanks, then the user has lost, and then I will return 1. So because this particular function is to check whether or not the user has lost, and this condition is when the user has lost. So if turns equal to 0 and if display word contains a blank, then the user has lost, and then I'm going to return it to the main function. So coming to the main function, here we are choosing our word at random, and over here we are initializing the number of turns to the length of the word, and then we have our string builder object guesses, which will contain the string of all guesses. Then we're going to print out start guessing, and then we're going to run a while loop with while turns greater than 0. We're going to print out the user the number of turns they have left, and then we're going to call the word display function and store the current status in the display word, which will be filled with blanks since we haven't guessed yet. So over here we have given guesses.toString because guesses is a string builder object and not a string. So we're going to pass it on to the word display function, and then we're going to print out the display word. So if the exclamatory mark stands for not, if the display word dot contains blank, that is, if the display word doesn't contain blanks, then we're going to print out u1, and then we're going to break out of the while loop. Or else if the user hasn't won in the first try, then we're going to print out guess a character or a string, and then we're going to print out guess a character or a string so that the user can guess, and we're going to store it in the guess variable, and then we're going to take input from the user using scanner.nextLine.toLowercase. .toLowercase basically is going to convert all the input given by the user into lowercase. So let's say the user has given input as capital A, it's going to convert it to small a. Now over here we are going to be appending all the guesses given by the user to the guesses string. So for right now we're going to append the current guess to the guesses string. I've explained this in the previous subtask, and now over here we're telling the user if the guess is correct or false. First you're going to initialize a boolean variable correct guess, and you're going to initialize it to false. So for char c in guess.toCharArray, word.index of c is not equal to -1. That is, if the letter is present, that is, if a character is given by the user and it is present in the word, then it won't be equal to -1. Then we're going to change correct guess to true, because if it's not equal to -1, that means the letter is present in the secret word and in the guess given by the user. So the guess will be correct, and then we're going to break out of the loop. And if it's not a correct guess, that is, if it's still false, then we're going to print out wrong guess, try again, and then we're going to reduce the number of turns by 1. Now over here we're checking whether or not the player has lost or the player has won, because we only give winning conditions over here, and over here we're going to give loss conditions. So if has player lost, the function which we defined earlier, we're going to give turns word, and we're going to convert the string builder object into a string. And if this is true, we're going to print out you lose, and we're going to print out the word was word, and then we're going to print out a full stop. And then we're going to break out of this while loop, or else we'll be running through this loop until the user wins or runs out of turns and loses. Finally, we're going to be closing the scanner to free up resources. Let's just run this code once. So let me give my name as Ram. So let me guess C first. So over here you can see I've guessed all the letters before I've run out of number of guesses, and I've won the game. Let me just run this code once again so that I can show you a loss case. So you can see over here I just guessed A continuously, and I ran out of guesses and there were blanks. That is why I've lost, and I've got a message saying you lose, the word was CodeChef. Let's just submit this code once. So I passed all 4 test cases. So that was it for our Hangman project, and this particular project was part of our course Java Projects for Beginners, where we have 10 different Java projects from which beginners can get familiar with Java. And if you're watching this on YouTube, maybe head over to CodeChef, try this project out for yourself, or try out any other courses which might interest you. And if you're watching this on CodeChef, great job diving into the solution. Move on to the next subtask. Thank you.